My name is Rajshree, and I'm working as a software engineer in Lipfrog Technology. So I've been working there for 2.5 months right now. So today I'm just going to give you a brief insight into what happens in the company, how we get features delivered, etc. So I'll be jumping into the software process right away from the beginning. So it's the nuts and bolts, how everything gets done, how we deliver features, how we deliver products in the company. So this is the nuts and bolts, how it gets started. So I've divided them into four parts: grooming, task division, implementation, and testing. And that's how we deliver the features. So this is just imagine a client has asked you to deliver a feature such as a sign up page or a login page. So we deliver that request. So first we groom it. Grooming is just an interaction with the client. The client comes forward and says, okay, suppose let's take the example of a login page. They say, I want a login page in my system. I want someone to authenticate requests, and I want a big landing page with forms and everything. So the client puts forward the request for a feature. That's the first step. And usually the people communicating with the client directly is either the project manager or the team lead, or sometimes in rare cases it's the whole team, but usually only the senior team members communicate with the client directly. And the senior leaders, they do the impact analysis. They try to prepare estimates of how long it would take to deliver that feature. And then after that, the team commits, okay, if you want a login page, I need 2 months to deliver the feature. So the team commits to the feature and they provide their estimates. So it seems like a small process, but this is like one of the most important part in the software process, where the team is directly communicating with the client. So there's a power dynamic here. You want to keep the client happy, but you want to make sure your team does not get burnt out while doing the work. Obviously, the client will be happy if you say you can deliver a feature instantly, very quickly. But if you commit to that, your team may be overworking. So usually it's the senior leaders who are doing this grooming, and they need to be very careful to balance it out. You want to keep the client happy, and you want to make sure your team members are also happy. So that's the major important part, and this is how it gets started. So just imagine in our process for the login page, say we've committed to delivering the login page, but we've said we need 2 weeks for it. So that's how grooming is done. And secondly, now we go to the task division. Now it's the responsibility of the team leaders to divide the task among team members, and this is where the entire team comes together. So the entire team has a meeting. It's called sprint planning. So it's usually in agile methodologies. It's called sprint planning. So usually a sprint lasts for around 2 weeks. So they divide the tasks accordingly. So there's like a front end resource, a back end resource, QA resource. The team lead says, okay, you finish the task within 7 days. The QA will test it within 2 days. It's going to divide the tasks among the resources. And so the QAs usually what they have to do is they have to write test cases and then test the tickets accordingly. And the developers, obviously, the tasks is to implement the ticket. So this task division is done. So after the grooming, we go into task division. And next we go to implementation. And this is for developers, this is the most important part. For me at least, this is where I get involved the most. How it happens is for the login page itself, we have a team. We have a team of designers, developers, and QA. So the designers design the login page, and the developers are asked to recreate it, put on some functionality, and the QA test it. So what I do in my implementation is I have to go through the requirements that the client has asked for, and I have to write code to make it work. And writing code is only not enough, but we have to write tests for it and make sure the code runs optimally. Maybe take out all the bottlenecks, make sure the code is optimized. And usually what happens is sometimes some things are left out in grooming, or a new doubt appears while you're implementing it. a new question appears. So what you have to do is you have to go back and forth with the client. You have to make sure that this is what they want, and that's how you get the logic into your code. So the designer designed the page, the developer develops the page, and then what happens is QA also provides test cases. Test cases are something like test cases are basically a written rule of tests that the login page has to pass. So the QA provides test cases such as, okay, when the user enters the username and the email, the system should validate if the email is a valid email, something like that. So the test case is provided, and what we have to do is the developer has to write the code and test it out. It's called dev testing. So the developer does not only write code but should also do testing according to the test cases the QA provides. So the developer also does some dev testing. So we write the code, we optimize it, and we dev test it and make sure it passes all the test cases provided by the QA. And then we send the code for code review, and this is done by the leaders. The leaders then review our code and make sure that it's not messy or it's not going to cause any bugs, and they're going to make sure the code standard is correct. So, and then after the code is passed, we send it to QA, and the quality assurance team, the QA team, verifies that the feature works and there are no bugs. But sometimes what happens is they do find a bug in mostly what happens is they do find a bug in the system and they send it back. So the ticket comes back to development and we again have to implement it and send it back. So it's like a rigorous process. We're doing communication back and forth with the client and with the QA. So this is like the main portion where all the work is done. And next it goes for testing, and this is what I said in the beginning. So what happens is the quality assurance team tests according to the test cases, and they also have to make sure that this new feature does not impact other features existing in the system. You don't want to introduce new bugs in the system. So what the QA does is make sure that it works seamlessly with everything, and they can also send it back to development sometimes. Mostly they do, but then after everything works out, they pass the ticket and it gets ready for business acceptance. So after this process, we present that particular feature, in this case the login page, to the client, and after the client accepts the feature, says, okay, this works for me, we get paid accordingly. And the cost estimates, the cost estimates and everything, that's usually done by project managers. And as developers, we don't quite go into that area. We don't quite look into how cost estimates are done or anything, but we do look into how much time it takes to deliver a feature, what problems are there. Maybe we can't deliver a feature because of certain restrictions. That's where developers come into play, and that's what I do in my work too. So I'm usually involved in grooming and task division and implementation. So the cost estimates that are done in the grooming, they are done in the grooming itself. That's handled by the senior leaders. That's usually by the project manager and the team lead. So what are the team members? So the team members in our team usually consist of a client or a product owner. So they're both the same thing, either a client who owns the product, or we can think of the client as someone who owns the product, and they're usually looking at how what the responsibility is to see how what everybody wants, what the customers want. So the client thinks of it, analyzes it, takes feedback, and requests features or for some new bugs to be fixed. So that's the client. Then we have principal engineer. That's the most senior level of engineer in the team. So he is the go-to person if we have any problem in implementing anything, or any technical problems, like maybe some code needs to be optimized and we can't do it, we go to him. So him or her. So that's the principal engineer. And we've got the team lead. So the team lead, as I mentioned before, he does the cost estimates, he does the time estimate, he does the task division, he communicates with the client. He basically has to have a hand over everything. So he's the team lead. and developers. That's where I fall into. So what we do is we usually communicate with the team lead and the principal engineer and understand the requirements and implement any feature or bug that we need to fix. And we have a DevOps team. So DevOps team, this may be new to you, but what they do is they deploy developers, right? Think of it like they're like developers, but developers write code, but DevOps, what they take care of is deploying that code to a server. So think of them as, well, it's the name, they do operation developer operations, so hence the name DevOps. And we have QA in our team, which is quality assurance. What they do is make sure that what they do is basically the name itself assure quality of the product. They make sure there are no bugs in the system. They make sure the feature is working like the client asked. They write test cases. And in most cases, what happens is we have project managers. Project managers are usually looking for resource allocation and cost estimates, but usually in my team at least we don't have a project manager. The team lead, he takes care of the responsibilities of a project manager too. So that makes up a team. And uh, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people involved. It's like it takes a village to deliver a feature, so we're all working in harmony together to deliver a feature there. So that was like the basic look into what the software process in our company is and who the team members are. And so that's the basic insight. So now you know what the basic flow of work is and who is involved. Now I'm going to go into the real life things that I only understood after I came into a software engineering company. This is something like I understood only after I started working. So next is education, to study or to code. So there's a lot of theoretical knowledge we learn in university and practical, but it does vary. When you step out into the industry, it is going to be a little different. Whatever you learned in your textbooks may not be the same when you apply it into your job. So what happens is in Kathmandu University, actually I'm not sure about BBIS, but actually in computer engineering at least, we had tons of projects for every subject, and that really helped us gain a step ahead. So what we had to do was we had to do a lot of projects for each subject, and that was like practical knowledge. We had to learn. So projects, like, nobody ever comes to you and like teaches you how to create a project, right? Your teachers don't come and tell you to do something, right? So what happens is when we were doing projects on our own, we had to research things on our own, implement them, make sure they worked on our own. We had to do everything on our own. We had to think of ideas on our own. So that really helped us in our career. Because other universities and other colleges, what I noticed was they didn't have a lot of projects. So what happened is because they didn't have a lot of projects, they didn't have the idea, or they didn't have the capacity to research and do stuffs on their own. Usually it was a teacher spoon feeding them the answers. But at least in Kathmandu University, I think that helped us gain an edge over other students, is that we already knew that we could like be self-reliant. We knew how to research things on our own and implement it on our own. But so this is a very big piece of knowledge. Well, I didn't know when I was studying it in university, but like your textbook's not going to take you very far. It's your projects that you have to really focus on. Your textbooks are not going to no one's going to ask you to tell the definition of anything, but then the practical knowledge, it really helps. So I think one needs to focus more on practical projects, etc. Because in our field, if you notice, degrees really don't matter. Nobody's going to ask you your GPA. Nobody's going to ask you your degree. It's only rough skills that matter in our field, at least. So if you want to be a developer, it's only rough skills that's going to take you far. Your degree or your GPA, that doesn't really take you that far, at least in software engineering. That's what I learned when I came into the industry. So, what are the challenges that we face in the software engineering? So sometimes we've got repetitive work. We find that we're always implementing the same APIs. We're always designing the same pages. So that really sometimes takes a lot of toll. So sometimes the work gets repetitive. And there's another thing called burnout. What the culture in our company, in most of the software companies, is every day we work 8 hours a day, and after our work time, we again have to update our skills or learn something new. Otherwise, we fall behind. So we're also working after work. So we there's a term called burnout, and it's the most frequent in tech industries. So we feel a lot of stress, and we really find it hard to balance life and work because we're always in front of our computers and coding. And so that's the second challenge. The third challenge is soft skills versus hard skills. So mostly what we struggle with is soft skills is communication, being able to communicate with the client, understand what they want, being able to keep the clients happy, and have a good relationship with their team members. While hard skills is being able to code, being able to create something, being able to develop something. So most of the software developers, they have the hard skills, but they do lack soft skills. Soft skill is also one of my insecurities too. I find it difficult to question the clients, make the right questions to the clients, understand what the client is asking of me. So that's a challenge that we find. So we need to focus on that too. And the biggest challenge of all is growth. So growth is software engineering. It's never a stagnant job. You always have to grow. If you don't learn new things every day, or sharpen your skills, you're going to fall really way behind. So that's why we're always on the lookout to learn new things, read new things, update our skills. So, and there's a lot of competition too, because a lot of like there are hundreds of developers that have the same skill set as you. So your growth is really important. So that's the biggest challenge that I think I face in software engineering. I'm always on the lookout to how to update my skills and be ahead of people. So that's the big challenge. And what's the culture like in a software company? So we're really not formal. We're like I think this is a universal culture in any country, in any part of the world. This is the culture for tech industry. We're very casual. There's like no formality whatsoever. Maybe there's a certain formality with your clients, but in the team itself, we're like a big family. We're very down to earth, and we're very funny, and it's wholesome. So no, if sometimes what happens is, suppose you don't know how to do a certain thing, especially technically, you forget. I mean, you don't know how to suppose create a feature or do something the client has asked you to. So nobody's going to look down on you or make fun of you or do anything like that to you. They're just going to, everybody's like really helpful, and everybody's like really understanding because everybody has been through that process before. So it's like a really wholesome environment. So at least the culture, what I was expecting was, in as a because I joined as an intern in my company, I was assuming that because it was the lowest position, I'd pretty much be ridiculed for not knowing a lot of stuff because I was really insecure about my skills. But everybody was like really understanding and really helpful. So that's how you grow. So, and I think this is the culture I found this culture I found it to be everywhere. And even if you from Google, it's the same in Google, it's the same in Nepal. So this culture, the one of the best things about working as a software engineer is the culture, and they're like really careful that you don't get burnt out, you're not overworking, you're not beating yourself up. So this portion of our culture is like really cool. So it's like one of the pros of working as a software engineer. So that's it. That's what I prepared. So thank you.